The topic today is auditing your ad account, whether that is something that you've been doing, an agency is doing for you, or an employee is doing it. You want to make sure that your ads account, your Google AdWords account, your pay-per-click account is working and properly set up, giving you the best potential ROI, which is return on investment. Ads can be extremely expensive and time consuming, and there is a way to get the most out of them, to really optimize them. And David is one of the best in the field. He has been managing Google Ads since 2004. He is an avid skier. He races go-karts and sailboats. He almost drowned 3 times in one day while working as a raft guide on the Colorado River, and he was even thrown out of Costa Rica. I'm not sure I want to hear that story, but maybe he'll tell us more. And he's the owner of Webrageous, which has allowed him to live and work in several countries, including Argentina, Colombia, and Italy, which has, of course, made 2020 much easier for him as he's been working from home since 2001. Same for me. I've been working from home for a long time, and I'm quite comfortable in the format. And there are many things that you can do remotely, including managing your ad campaigns. So before giving David the floor, just wanted to say thank you for joining us. This is a Smith.ai Master Series webinar. I'm Maddy Martin. I am the head of growth and education here, and it is our pleasure to bring our community experts to help you run a better, more productive, more profitable, more professional business, just as we help answer calls, chats, texts, and Facebook messages 24/7. We want to make sure that we are plugging you into the best resources to support your business. So without further ado, David, you have promised, secret insider tips, how to audit your ads account, specifically Google AdWords. I give you the floor and say, save us all, please, from wasting lots of money.
Awesome. Maddy, thank you so much for the warm introduction. And let me start sharing my screen, and then we're going to start to take a look at a few different points that I think are going to be super, super helpful. So I am sharing it now. Maddy, can you see my screen?
It looks great.
Okay, great. And I did see a few comments come in at the beginning. And so if anyone has any questions about anything specifically, feel free to send those through, and then I can elaborate on any point. So first thing I want to share with everyone is change history. And you can see here, you can select all the way at the bottom of the screen under campaigns and ad groups and ads and all that. And most people don't even know that this exists. But if you have an employee that you're overseeing, or an external agency that's managing your account, this is one thing to check periodically and see if someone's actually doing something. Okay. Now it could be on autopilot where they have, you have automated bidding, and so you have 10,000 changes a month. You could say, oh wow, someone's actually doing something. Not necessarily, but you do want to take a look at this. And just because someone's only making 10 or 15 changes a month, that's not necessarily bad, because if it's someone who's really great and they know exactly what they're doing and you feel you're getting great results, then I wouldn't worry too much about it, because you really, the goal is to make small incremental changes. But if you see no changes over the past 3 months, then you know that you're paying for absolutely nothing, and you might as well just get rid of the agency and just set it on autopilot, or go find another agency that can actually improve your results. So
now, David, this is based on the date range that you're filtered by. Is that right? So I see that we're looking at August. Is that only going to give the change history for that period?
Yes, Maddy, thank you. That's a really good point. So you want to set it to the last 30 days, and then, or maybe the last 3 months, or all time. Because yeah, if you're just looking at yesterday and you see no changes, well, yeah, of course, no big deal if someone didn't make changes yesterday or today. Even if a week or two goes by, that's okay, as long as someone is doing, at least something every month.
Okay, got it.
And then the next thing that I wanted to share with you would be search keywords. And this is a really great place without knowing a whole lot about AdWords or Google Ads, as it's now called. You can tell if there's something that's amiss. And you can see I've sorted by cost per conversions, cost/CONV. And for anyone who doesn't know, a conversion is typically a successful web chat, a phone call over 30 seconds or a minute, or someone filling out your contact form. Or if you're in e-commerce, then it would be a purchase. So you definitely need to have conversion tracking set up. Otherwise, you are flying in the blind, and it's really, really scary. And there's no excuse to run Google Ads without tracking conversions. So you need to have the right columns. You need to have conversions and costs per conversions showing, as well as cost. And if you can't, sometimes you can't select conversions or cost per conversion, in which case it's all conversions and cost per all conversion. Let me see if I can, here you go. So here's where you can modify the columns. And sometimes you get too many columns in there, and then you have to scroll all over the place. So you can X out impressions and clicks and final URL. And you can see here under conversions, you want to choose some things under that. So let me go back here. So you sort by cost per conversion. Now let's say your average cost per conversion is $50. Then you want, a reasonable range of, somewhere between $20 and $200 per conversion. If you see something, a keyword that has $1,000 per conversion, you're wasting money. Someone is just not doing what they should. But look, no one's perfect. It's possible it was an oversight or a new keyword that was added last week. So it doesn't necessarily mean you need to change your agency, but you want things in a fairly reasonable band. If you're paying $50 a conversion for most conversions, why would you want to continue and let a keyword run where you're paying $1,000 a conversion? Now, as Maddy mentioned, the date range is important. Look at least the last 30 days, if not the past 6 or 12 months. Looking at all time is not a good idea because 5 years ago, you had a very different cost per conversion. Things have gone up. Now, I know that, Maddy, probably about 60% of your clients are law firms. Is that right?
Yeah, that's about right. And, one of the things that we see is, in particular with law firms, there is a range, but cost per click is a little bit on the high end compared to other industries. And then also the return on that investment can potentially be far greater than someone who's in e-commerce buying boots online, right? So it could be that a client is actually worth thousands of dollars.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I don't really like to focus so much on cost per click. Is it important? Sure, it's important. But what's really important is cost per lead, and then cost per sign up, and then the average value of that sign up, which is huge. And there's a lot of advanced things we could talk about to try and track that. And in some cases that is trackable. But let's say we have a law firm that's targeting personal injury, bankruptcy, and divorce. Well, you're going to have a vastly different cost per lead for PI versus those other two practice areas. So you want to look at them separately. Okay. Another thing is under cost, click on cost so it sorts from high to low for, let's say, the past year. And you want to scroll down and find the first keyword that has 0 conversions. And what's the cost? Well, if you spent $10,000 and no conversions, unless you're targeting mesothelioma, it's probably time to turn that off, right? Now,
so what is your threshold? Is it a factor of what is your target cost per conversion, and it's maybe 3 or 5 times that? When do you say, okay, enough is enough, this one's not working?
Depending on your patients, I would say 2 to 5 times your target cost per lead or cost per conversion. That's when you want to either turn things off or greatly reduce the cost per click. And you can see here max CPC. So you can adjust the max CPC if you're on CPC or cost per click bidding instead of another kind of enhanced bidding, automated bidding. It used to be called cost per acquisition, CPA bidding years ago. And by the way, a lot of that, those newfangled bidding strategies, they don't work. I like to use cost per click bidding, and I don't like to use the enhanced CPC. I don't think that really helps that much.
So yeah, and one of the things that we find is that if you have done Facebook ads or retargeting, that behaves very differently from Google search ads. For example, with retargeting, you're going to be displaying ads and there's a very high frequency until you hit a conversion oftentimes. So search ads are completely different. You really need to focus on your conversion rate upon that first seen ad. Is that right, David?
Absolutely. I mean, they are two totally different animals. And now for a lot of our audience, if you're doing bankruptcy or divorce, something really sensitive, something medical related, financial related, Google won't allow you to do retargeting actually, because it's just creepy to see those ads. Mm-hmm. And imagine a couple is married and someone's thinking of a divorce, and then their wife, who works in digital advertising, starts seeing these ads following them everywhere for ready for your divorce, file now. that would be very, very creepy.
It's the same problem when you're trying to buy someone a present and you share a computer or an iPad, and then they see the ads for the golf clubs and you're like, you weren't looking for those for yourself.
Exactly. So for a lot of law firms, depending on what they do, that's unfortunately out the window, because retargeting has one of the best cost per leads for most clients if it's set up correctly. So let's see, let me take a look here. This is for ad text optimization. And you can't see the ads, but I want to talk about the numbers because that's what's important. And take a look here. You can see here all the way on the left, ad groups. Look at the last 6 to 12 months as the date range, which you set in the upper right-hand corner. Then click on ad groups, sort by cost or clicks or conversions, and click on the ad group with the most conversions. And then look at this. And even though you can't see the ad, that would just be here on the left. Look at first of all, in terms of cost and clicks, the ad that Google is favoring. It's the one that has the highest click-through rate, 2.85%. But I want you to look and see how the cost per conversion is the highest of any of them here, $85. Google does what's best for Google, not necessarily. Sometimes it's best for all parties, but everyone's acting in their own best interests, including Google. So they're gonna show the ad that it has the best click-through rate, because that means more clicks and more revenue for Google. It's only logical. But this is not in your best interest because the cost per conversion is so high. Wouldn't you be better served choosing the one that has a little bit less click-through rate, 2.08%, and $50 per lead? You know, I'd rather pay $50 a lead than $85 any day. So that's what you want to do, is turn off the ads that have, the not so great results.
I think that's a really great point because, again, very different from a lot of the other channels that you may be looking at. You know, when you really just want eyeballs, you want page likes, etc. This is a normally significantly more expensive advertising channel to use than most Facebook ads. And if you look at the conversion rate here and the total count of conversions, you can see on the second row that yes, there are fewer clicks, but you got nearly as many conversions and you almost doubled the conversion rate. So those clicks are really good quality because more of them are converting. So that's really what you want to keep an eye on.
Right. And one thing that's really interesting, building on what Maddy says, is that the cost was $706 for 14 conversions versus $1,356 for 16 conversions. You see, everyone in the industry says you should run multiple ads. I hear that all the time. Well, yeah, you should start off with multiple ads. You should test different ad variations. Doesn't mean you should run them forever. I've never heard anyone say that other
right.
than me. You turn off the dogs. And I had a client come to me that's spending $200,000 every month, and they needed to get their cost per lead down. They just started a month ago. And I've dropped it by 30 or 40%. And really the only thing that I've done so far, I'm working really closely with their client who wants to make all the changes, and I have to run everything through them. But the only really major change we've made is paused ads. I mean, how simple is that? And their cost per lead is down 30 to 40%. It's unbelievable. It's just
I think
trick.
Another thing, David, that this reminds me of, because so many people here are doing consultations. They're having online scheduling links on their website. They have receptionists, they have chat. There's a lot of noise that can be generated if your conversion rate is 4% versus 8 or 9% or even 21%. I don't know if that's a brand campaign, but any of the lower converting ads that we're seeing here are also going to signal to you that there is traffic on your website that is generating a lot of noise. Maybe they're tire kickers. Maybe they're not quite right. They're not in the right area. We can talk about location. They haven't hit the right keywords. They're speaking a different language, whatever the case is. That's going to create noise, not just in terms of cost and making things look better than they necessarily are, but it's going to fill up your calendar at that same conversion rate, right? So those are human beings, they're not just clicks. Those who are converting from the campaign that's at 8 or 9% versus the campaign that's at 4% are seeing, in this case, let's say, the same information, the same landing page. So those people who are less likely to convert, if you have a really great landing page and they say, yeah, I'm going to book an appointment, they may be less likely to convert after taking all that time of yours on that consultation if you give consultation. So that's another thing. This can actually create a lot of busy work, but not conversion lower down in the funnel.
Right, absolutely. And I think you really have to look at everything as one big picture. And so if you have a message in your ad, you want to reiterate that on the landing page. If you talk about a free consultation in the ad, but then people don't find that on the landing page, a lot of people, they're going to be out of there. They're going to hit the back button. And, look at the conversion rate. Conversion rate's 5 to 21%. 21%, we're like, wow, everyone's jumping up and down. 21%, that's great. But still, 80%, 4 out of 5 who land on your page aren't converting. So conversion rate optimization is huge. And that's something that is a value added with what we do, is we're going to help clients with that.
So let me ask you a question, David. I mean, we see 21%. Is that a brand campaign? Do you know from this screenshot? Yeah.
Well, this is actually, these are 4 ads from the same ad group. And what's interesting is that last ad, which I haven't spoken about that so much because you only had 3 conversions from each of those. So it's not entirely statistically.
Rate is very low. So obviously not brand, but yeah, so that's a good point. In an ad group, obviously you can test different imagery, different copy, different sort of call to action, different focus points. If you're in a family law practice, there may be different keywords that appeal to your target audience, and you can test all of those in the same ad group with the same bidding strategy and let Google, as David is saying here, throw them out there. The problem is when you only let Google control it, they're going to optimize for your maximum spend.
Sure, absolutely. Oh, and by the way, for divorce and family law, protect your most valuable asset. For custody, that is a really great blurb you can use in your ads. And for personal injury, which is harder to get to work now, the cost per lead is so high. The best ad I've seen, millions in settlements and no fee unless you win. Those are the best ads for personal injury and auto accidents. We've got a huge amount of experience in mass torts, pharmaceutical, medical device liability. Another practice area that's working really great right now is bankruptcy. It is amazing, and it's only going to get better, unfortunately. But let me point out one thing before we move on to the next slide. These last 2 ads here, cost per conversion looks great, but the click-through rate isn't so good. So you want to be more careful with that. And also, it's just not statistically relevant. You've only had 14 and 31 clicks. So let me move on to the next slide. Settings. For every campaign, you really want to, as a business owner, a partner, someone who's overseeing your Google Ads account and letting someone else drive, you want to look at this once a year, once every 5 years, something like that, and make sure that there's nothing done that's really silly. When I travel around the world, sometimes I'll search for terms that would, you would expect to show up in the United States, like for example, divorce attorney. And when I'm somewhere in Colombia or Italy or something, and I search that, it's not uncommon that someone made that mistake of allowing their ads to run worldwide. And so their budget runs out probably in about 10 minutes at 9, 10 a.m. Their budget is out for the day, and they wonder a month or two later, why am I not getting any results? Why do you get a lead from the middle of Italy or something, or Athens, Greece? Well, that's why. So you want to check here, look here on the left on locations. You can check there. And the other thing you want to check is ad schedule. You want to make sure that you're running ads when you want to run ads. Now, when you have a campaign that's running great, let me fast forward here to talk a little bit about call-only campaigns. Take a look here, because this really ties in with Smith.ai. And what I want you to see is that the cost per lead here is $61.26 for these call-only campaigns. And this is just a fraction of their total spend. But most people, most clients probably want to drive live calls. Those are the best leads, because when someone fills out a web form, then all business owners have had this. Even when you call them back literally a minute later, sometimes people don't pick up, and it winds up being a dead lead after you've called them and emailed them five times, and you get radio silence. So that's why call only is so important. So you want to push calls, and if you wind up getting a better cost per lead on calls, then you want to consider running your call-only campaigns, possibly nights and weekends. But look at the results. I've seen it work, and I've seen it flop. So watch the cost per lead carefully. And that, of course, is going to drive more business to Maddy if you're using Smith, right?
Well, our business is your business. So, we only are successful if you're successful. But I want to clarify a couple of things, David. We're getting a ton of questions in.
Good.
And some things about ad copy, because obviously that got everyone's attention. But so
Sure.
We'll go back to that in a second. But when you say call only campaign, for people who haven't tried this before, do you mean that like you're not clicking to a website? Do you mean your only option and action from that ad is to make a phone call? Can you describe what exactly that means?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So on the search result page, if you're on a cell phone, and you have to be on a cell phone, and you search for divorce attorney, the ad will say something like, call 866 blah, blah, blah. And so you click on it, and you are immediately connected with that business. So that is call only. You completely bypass the website. So if you're new in business and you don't have a website yet, first, I'm sorry for you. You really need a website to be successful. But for your first week or two, your first month or two, just turn on call only campaigns. It's really simple.
Brilliant. Okay.
Completely bypass the website. If you have a website that doesn't convert well, you can completely bypass it. It's great.
Or wait. Well, so let's ask a question then for one of our attendees here who doesn't feel like she has a lot of control over her ads. Could you almost circumnavigate your agency, or could you circumvent your agency, or could you go off on your own and create those call only campaigns with a new Google Ads account? How would that work in tandem with the other ads that are running?
Sure. So I'm not sure if I entirely understand the question, because you should be in control of your ads. Either you're managing Google Ads yourself, and then you can change the ads yourself, Or you've got an agency, and I don't see why they would not send you the ads that they're using and be willing to make changes. So is there anything I'm missing there? Because
well, we have heard, and it's not just, and feel free to comment, chime in for anyone who's experiencing this, but there are some agencies that have a package with your website. You get advertising, and they basically say, are we generating leads to you? Great, then don't ask questions. So, there may be people who really are interested in saying, I would like to just have control of just these call only ads or things like that.
Sure. So, if we look at the components there's web hosting, which is easy. You can sign up yourself with someone and transfer over your site. There's, you need a programmer to make changes and to maybe sometimes to copy over that website to a new hosting platform. And then for the Google Ads portion, you should be able to turn that off and then choose whatever provider you're comfortable with. And most companies, you could just tell them, look, I just want to put everything on hold for a month or two and test the waters somewhere else. And everyone's going to welcome you back in with open arms, with very few exceptions. If it's an independent person who's maybe a little more sensitive, maybe their feelings will be hurt. And if they're real busy and maybe you're not the best customer, maybe they wouldn't welcome you back. But if the relationship isn't there, why not test? And with SEO, natural search optimization, it can take 6 to 12 months to get results. So you have to be more patient there. But with paid, give people a short leash, 1 or 2 months. And if you're paying some exorbitant amount for hosting and changes, and they give you some package, well, you get up to 5 hours every month. Well, I don't need 5 hours; I need 30 minutes. And you're paying some ridiculous amount every month. Adam Wolf of Legal Web Design, he's a guy I've known for years who is wonderful, and he is an expert at getting people off of some of those more expensive
predatory contracts. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And you should have access to your Google Ads account.
And is that WOLF or OLFE?
WOLF, and it's www.legalwebdesign.com. So you should have access to your Google Ads account. And by the way, there's one company in particular that seems to be having some trouble this year that doesn't give people access. And I've gotten 4 calls in a row. The last 4 calls have been from people that are with this company. I don't think we want to name them by name.
No, but I think we are aware of the same one, David. And that's sort of what I'm talking about. Not only predatory sort of contracts that lock you in for multiple years at a very high rate, but also that own oftentimes your website, and for sort of unassuming new business owners, new law firm owners, in particular with this company, it's legal specific. It can be very hard to get out of and pretty litigious. So we have, if that's your situation, email me or David. I'll provide my information at the end. It's just Maddy@Smith.ai, MADDY@Smith.ai. Contact me and I can put you in touch with other people who have successfully gotten out of those contracts if it goes beyond advertising. But let's table that for right now.
Sure.
That is obviously a concern, but in terms of opportunity, there are a couple questions. So one is, David, you sort of bestowed upon a couple practice areas some great ad copy, but there was a question about immigration law. I'm also wondering, because I know estate law is surging right now. What about immigration and estate? What are some good ad copy examples for them if you have them?
I don't have any off the top of my head, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe send you a message. We'll give David's contact information at the end, and he can, audit your advertising and
Sure.
work on that.
And we've walked into a lot of new industries and made a big impact. Like this latest client with a $200,000 a month budget, we've dropped the cost per lead 30-40%. So just because we haven't, we don't have tremendous experience doesn't mean that we can't be successful. And we've got a lot of experience with divorce, bankruptcy, and criminal, Just to be honest, I'm always very upfront with people. Auto accident is a little bit harder to get that to work right now. Cost per lead is high, especially in competitive areas. If you're in San Diego, Miami, Chicago, tough. Maybe your best bet is to start pushing referrals more, because Google Ads has gotten very, very, very expensive. If you're in a suburban area or rural area, then you've got a fighting chance. You've got a fighting chance. And another thing I'll mention on the people that seem like they're locked in and they don't own their website, the company that we're thinking of, they actually do allow people that you own your website. You just can't take the host, you can't take it on that hosting package and plop it somewhere else. You have to kind of set it up from scratch. But you can actually do that. And Adam Wolf at Legal Web Design is an expert at getting people out of contracts.
That's fantastic. I didn't know about him until just now, and that's a huge resource, because it can feel, very scary to not have total control over those things that you thought you really had more control over than you do. One other question that came through, and then we'll get back to, I think, your scheduled program, so to speak, David. But there's a question around, the contingency practices. So, if your ad, best practices are, no fees unless you win. In this person's jurisdiction who's asking the question, you can't advertise and you can't do contingency fees. What would you suggest as a good message for the ad copy or the landing page?
What about millions in settlements? Can they say that?
So just that first part of it that converts well.
Yeah, I mean, just that alone. Free consultation is another one that's good. Also, 5 stars, 5-star reviews, something like that. That can also go over really, really well.
So one unrelated question, then we'll get back, I promise, David, is from another attendee here who said, do you lose out on SEO when you switch from, maybe a predatory company you're trying to escape from to a similar company? Are you going to take an SEO hit?
So here's what you want to do. You want to make sure you know all of the URLs for all of your pages. Most of your links are going to go to your home page, right? Now, I am not a super expert in SEO. I started in web design and SEO in 2001, and then we got involved in paid search in 2004. So I'm not completely up to date. I would check with some other people, but you want to make sure that those URLs stay the same, or that you do a redirect to other pages when you change. But as long as you keep your URL, and you should own your domain and be able to change your domain. If you lose, if you have, San Diego autoaccidents.com, and you lose that in the transition, then you do lose every single bit of SEO that you've done. And you want to make sure you don't do that. So, there's a number of different components to switching. One is the URL. Okay, you should own that. Make sure you own that, and don't spend another dime on SEO if you don't own that, but you should. Then there's the actual design and the layout. Do you own that? Hopefully you do. Usually you do. And there are a few different of those companies out there, and so we might be talking about different companies. I'm not sure. So then you've got the content, and you want to make sure that you own the content. You probably paid for it to be developed, so you want to make sure that you still own that. So then the next question is can I just continue hosting with your hosting company and just not pay that hosting company directly? Now, with some of those predatory companies, the answer is absolutely not, from what I've heard. So you have to change hosting. So will they give you the web files? Probably not. But that's where, the right web designer can just grab a copy of your website, and it might not be perfect, but they can put all those little finishing touches and make the contact form work again. And but you're going to save so much money that you just work through those things. The other issue is email. And so if all your email is hosted there, do you lose all of your old emails? Can you port that over, or can you back it up and then re-upload it? And that is a trickier question, and you want to get the answer to that because you might have a lot of important emails saved, and so you need to get to the bottom of that.
Yeah, that really requires, you know, a pretty comprehensive review. So if you have further questions about that, you know, we'll get back to the main topic around advertising, and feel free to contact, you know, David for more information. We will provide his contact information at the end of this so that you can get in touch with him directly. So yeah, let's look at the diagnostics here, David. This is such a great tool that AdWords offers.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you actually own your own Google Ads account and you can log in, take a look at the top. There's a search bar, type in ad preview. And so you can see in any area that you're targeting for desktop or mobile, if your ad is showing and why you're showing or not showing. It's kind of cool. But look, if you're just overseeing an employee or an ad agency, you know, hopefully you don't have to do too awful much of this, but it's a good idea. Take a look here at the bottom where this is a call extension. This is different than call only. You can either call or go to the website. It's kind of cool. So yeah, here is call extensions. So it's under ads and extensions and then extension. And you can just add a call extension. You can set the hours that it runs so that if you want after hours to only drive people to your website, then you say, okay, it only runs Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, for example. So kind of neat. And then under advanced bid adjustment, take a look here on the left, you know, all the way under campaigns, ads, ad groups, keywords, all that stuff. You go all the way down. Here is where you can push your call extension to show more frequently. And you want to be careful about this because you can overdo it and you can set a bid adjustment to plus 500%, and Google will happily take your money, even though you only needed to set it at plus 50 or plus 20%. Look at INTER period coverage. I can't even remember what it stands for. I should, but you know, if you're already at 60, 70%, that means 60, 70% of the time your call extension is showing, and that's about as good as it gets. If your call extension is only showing 10 or 20% of the time, that's when you want to do this and look at the cost per conversion, right? Makes sense, right?
Yep.
And let's see. Some people have a dashboard where they can take a look at their calls from Google Ads for call only or the ad extension or whatever it is. And what you want to look for, you want to be in here, have your employees in here every day looking at abandoned calls and short calls. So those are the ones you want to call back, because especially with call only, sometimes people, you know, someone didn't know what, you know, there was a question, what the heck is call only? How does it work? Some people who are searching don't know. They think they're going to click and go to a website. And I don't agree with this. If you click, but then you hit cancel and you don't actually start that call, you actually get, that advertiser gets charged. I don't think that's right. That's my personal opinion. But so that's where you might either within, here, actually they would have to go a little bit one step further and actually have a call for a second or two and then cancel. Then you would see that here and you can call them back. And it's a really tricky deal because as attorneys, we're dealing with some really sensitive topics. So, you know, it's not as easy as calling back, hi, are you ready to file divorce? This is
Someone
John, how can I help you?
Contact form, right, totally. And actually, so, you know, if you're using CallRail and you have call tracking numbers that are, you know, monitoring, you know, which calls are coming through your ads versus other channels direct to your, you know, homepage through SEO, you may be very familiar with keeping an eye on your call log. If you're not, and also if you don't even have time to do that, let alone call these people back, one of the ways that you can use Smith.ai is not just in answering calls, but in outbound calls to these phone numbers. So
that's great.
You can just automatically forward those numbers to us. Same as if someone completes a contact form on your website, you probably get a notification. You can send those directly to us and we'll call them right back. Same thing here. any numbers that are coming through that meet the criteria of a short call or abandoned call, you want to make sure that they're called back, but that it's not like where the onus is just on you.
That's great. That's so important. And, you know, people can call after, if you're pushing calls after hours, you want to make sure that you're getting them to sign up for a meeting that next week. And so you want to get you want to have your call center do as much of the intake as possible. And that's where Smith.ai does a great job. And then all of a sudden you walk in the office Monday morning, you already have appointments.
Let me tell you, or the next morning, right? Because, you know, one of the biggest mistakes that people make with call answering services is they use them as glorified voicemail, and there's no screening that happens. There's no scheduling. 47% of calls outbound to leads and individuals from businesses are answered. That means the majority are not answered. Why? Because your strange number that they don't recognize looks just like all those other spam and spoof numbers that are ringing to their phone. So the problem is you're not yet distinguished as someone that they want to hear from. They don't know your number. They're not yet a client. So you have to pick up on that first ring, and then you have to make sure that that person is screened. Are you only practicing family law and they're looking for personal injury? That's a referral, right? That's not someone that you want to have a consultation with. So give the receptionist your referral list too. But also, if they are a good potential client, then you want to not just say, great, you know, so-and-so attorney will call you back, but let me get you on Attorney Jane's calendar for later today or first thing tomorrow morning. And that stops their search because we know that they have their search results page open, and they'll just click the back button and keep going if they don't get to a resolution, which normally means a scheduled consultation or a live transfer to the attorney if one is available.
Great. I love it. That's great. Can you do live transfers?
Yes. And we will check to make sure that you're available, so it doesn't just drop into your voicemail and we put it into the ether. We will put the person on hold briefly, say, one moment, let me see if Attorney Jane is available, check and make sure that you want to accept that call, and then, you know, transfer it warmly. So that is a huge benefit. That's also something that you can adjust your preferences for if you have different transfer preferences, if they're a lead or new potential client, or obviously certain times of the day. You could say only in my personal injury practice and they mention this thing I consider an emergency, can you transfer it to me or to my intake team?
See, that's great. That is really brilliant to have those criteria to transfer that call immediately, because that, you know, especially when we're talking about contingency fee, people are going to sign up with the first person they speak with, okay? Because they don't have to pay anything up front.
2 out of 3 potential clients, this is a little bit of a sidebar, but 2 out of 3 potential clients base their decision to hire on the initial responsiveness to a phone call, email, website chat, text message, Facebook message, you name it. That first contact point is going to determine the majority of the time whether or not they hire that firm, because guess what? Most legal clients, most professional services clients, you don't have to just be in law. That actually applies very broadly, even though it's Clio report data, and Clio is a case management system for lawyers. That applies because your responsiveness is such a signal of quality that leads to the conversion. And if you don't respond, you're betraying your efforts and all of the quality that you may provide, but they'll never get to understand or experience it because that upfront experience doesn't convey what they can expect when they hire you. So make sure that you consider that phone, that website, that communication experience as part of your overall firm delivery.
And you just wasted $337.29 on that click to Google.
Not a minor thing, exactly. You might as well take the lighter to the cash. If it's next to you, take it out, look at it and say, do I feel like burning this today if you don't pick up that call?
Right, and that's why. Right, that's why, unless you're just filthy, filthy rich,
Even then, most filthy rich people, the few that I know, are still not burning cash and didn't get
Probably
to that
not.
point because they burned it. Right.
Probably not.
We have a great session that's also on our YouTube about building your 7 or 8 figure law firm. And that is not something that Charlie Mann of Great Legal Marketing is a proponent of. So don't waste your money. And if you are taking all of this energy and effort to have an agency, an employee, or even learn yourself how to do these ads really well, you might as well not do anything at all if you don't follow through on the leads that are generated, who visit your website, who call you. And I will say this, if you're doing those call only campaigns, if you have your phone number call extension, you will find that people will also copy that number and try and text you. So if you don't have a text enabled phone number, it is really important. Well, first of all, if you have a cloud or VoIP phone number, you do have a text enabled phone number. You may not know that you're getting texts. So go check that out, because I had a client recently tell me, oh, look at all these texts I didn't know were coming through. So don't let that be you. And if you don't already have texting enabled, there is ZipWhip. There are lots of great SMS add-ons for landline phones that you can add. And then you can also have Smith.ai answer those texts that come through. But I really encourage that you open up all those available channels. If you have website visitors, make sure that you have chat so that you can engage with them, especially in those sensitive areas that David mentioned: bankruptcy, divorce, any, immigration, child custody. Not everyone, as you know, is very comfortable speaking about their legal situation on the phone. Maybe they can't be overheard because right now we're all at home and we're in close proximity to people who we may not want to overhear us talk to a lawyer about whatever legal issue. So these silent channels, text, chat, even through the Facebook recommendation engine, Facebook messages are coming through. Make sure that you have silent channels and opportunities for people to get in touch with you who are not going to voice their concerns but need your services.
Great points. And another thing is you want to have spillover, so that if you don't answer the call during business hours within X number of rings,
1 or 2.
Right. Oh, 1 or 2. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So another thing is, if you have CallRail, I'm a big fan of CallRail, you want to make sure you set up notifications for those texts, because even if you have it enabled, if you don't have the notifications, you're not going to know unless you're logging in every day. And I don't log into CallRail every single day. So that's important. But let me move on to another thing, because I want to make sure that we give people what we promised, which is some quick hits for reviewing their Google Ads account. And so search terms is an important place to look. And if you're targeting phrase match, broad match, or modified broad match, you're going to have search terms. So if you have, if you're bidding on the term divorce attorney and you have no negatives, you're going to show up for free divorce attorney and pro bono divorce attorney. If you sign up with Webrageous, we're going to, of course, we have a master list of negatives, and pro bono, that's already baked into the negative keyword list. You don't even have to ask. But that's where you're going to see all the terms you're actually showing up for. That's where it says here, search term. This is where you do want to look at all-time data, and you want to sort by cost and conversions. You're going to find some new keywords you haven't thought of, and you can add those to your account, optimize them, and have ads that, and maybe landing pages cater just to those keywords. But sort by cost, and there's a little button here, these little boxes here where you can exclude those terms. So I do want to point that out. Most people don't know about it, but it's very important.
So one, question that I have for you, David, as we're looking at outsourcing as the most affordable option, typically, not necessarily hiring someone, not necessarily building expertise in an area that you don't want or need expertise, but outsourcing to an agency. How do you pick the right agency, and what are some questions to ask? And also, what can I expect to pay? Is it 10%, 30%, a flat rate? Like, how much do I need to get my foot in the door?
Sure. So as far as price goes, What we charge is typically the greater of $1,095 with 15% of click charges for the typical client. There are some people with special needs where the pricing is going to be higher. And if someone's spending $100,000 a month, we're not going to charge them 15%. It's going to be a much lower percentage. So you're going to find people, you can find people as low as, if you're really lucky, $495, to be honest. You will find that, but you get what you pay for. And that person probably has 80 accounts that they're managing, or they're not very good.
80? 80 for one person?
That is
How is that possible?
That's the norm in this industry. And yeah, I mean, that's just the way that a lot of agencies are set up, especially if they're only charging you $500 a month. Even if they're charging you $1,000 a month, there's a lot of agencies that do that. Wow. So that's I've never had anyone ask, how many accounts do you personally manage? And right now, I think the number is like 15 or 17 or something like, I think it's 15. So, it's a really good ratio. And look at the math, 80 accounts times, divided by 40 hours in the work week, that's 30 minutes a week before you take into account reports, account set up for that account that just took you 10 hours to set up, right? Mm-hmm. Bathroom breaks, personal time, the time that, so-and-so is spending on Tinder or TikTok or whatever else that they're wasting their time on.
Tinder's probably down right now with COVID, but yeah.
I hear it's up because everyone's bored, which is scary. Gosh. Crazy, huh?
Very crazy, but also crazy to think about managing 80 accounts. It's hard enough to just manage one. I mean, I think 17 is impressive. So what are some of the questions beyond how many accounts are you managing? Like, is there a way to get a look into or a trial or preview into how someone works and what sort of work quality we can expect?
Yeah, and let me circle back to the price question, because I quoted you on what the low end is. At the high end, it's going to go up to 20% of click charges, sometimes even more, with a minimum as high as $1,500 or $2,000 a month. So, we're right in the middle, but what's important is, people are going to get great service, and most people will get to work with me. But circling back to the questions to ask, everyone in this industry knows how to sell. That seems to be the number one thing on the skill set of everyone in this industry. They know how to talk, but a lot of providers, that person that you're speaking with is not who you're going to wind up dealing with. It's going to be someone with 1 or 2 or 3 years experience. So I don't care how warm and fuzzy they make you feel. First, check their online reputation, okay? So if it's XYZ PPC, and you type in XYZ PPC and you don't see their Google box with their reviews, find their address. Type in XYZ PPC and their address, find the Google box, find the reviews, look at all the reviews from all the different sources, because there are some huge red flags. If they don't have above a 4.0, and we have a 5.0 across all the different review sites. If it's not above 4.0, and ideally above about a 4.5 or even 4.7, I would look elsewhere. And
hold it to the same standard as your business, right?
Exactly.
And another great site, if you're thinking, well, am I looking at Yelp? Well, like, where am I looking for agency reviews? Clutch is a very good site now. You may find, BBB, Better Business Bureau, but yeah, Google does actually have, probably the most accessible reviews.
Sure. I'm not sure how some agencies wind up with 100 Clutch reviews. That's the only thing that's a question mark in the back of my mind, because it's hard to leave a Clutch review.
It is.
You got to do an interview.
The thing I use on Clutch, and it's like a full interview. If you remember the days of Angie's List, although maybe they're still around, they would have an hour-long interview with you and write the review for you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's good. I'm just a little skeptical of some of the top ones on there. Or maybe I'm jealous because I only have one client that's gone through the hoop. I'm trying to get more to jump. It's hard to get a ton of reviews when, you only have, a small handful of clients. But, if you've got the place that has 100 or 500, right? I mean, the agency that has 500 reviews, well, they've got 50 employees, and you're going to be one of 80 accounts that's managed by them. So,
That's a very good point. Actually, maybe volume of reviews is not always a good sign. If you do want to talk about reviews, we actually have a webinar with Nice Job that's coming up. So you can email me and sign up for that. But back to, we have 3 minutes left. Okay. Your focus area, David. So one last tip on hiring an agency, and then I want to tell people how to get in touch with you.
Okay, great. So yeah, check the reputation. Do a video meeting just like this, where you can do a screen share with an account manager that will be managing your account. How many accounts are you managing? And okay, can you show me 3 accounts you're managing? Can you do that? And after they've said yes, have them show you the change history and see the change, how many changes they made in the last 90 days for a few of those accounts. And give them a short lease, 1 or 2 months, and can them. If they're not good, try someone else. Try someone else. Try every 1 to 2 months.
Don't sign any long contract. Absolutely.
Never, ever.
Always negotiate. I mean, that's always my principle here at Smith.ai is, those contracts are always negotiable. So ask for what you need. And if you don't get what you need, there are other people who can do a good job. But there are a smaller set of people who do a great job. And even if you're running a small business or a small law firm, you deserve an agency that does a great job. And it's not outside of your cost, your reason to get that agency. So speaking of which, I think, I wouldn't have hosted David if I didn't think he was super impressive. Obviously, we saw a peek into his methods and into his brain and his processes. So David, I understand that you have these slides and probably more that we didn't even get through online at webrageous.com/Smith. So I will put that in the email follow-up with this recording. I will put that in the notes on YouTube. And then also, if you would like to get in touch with David, first of all, some of you have already sent your contact information to me. I will make sure that David gets that. You can also call him. Absolutely. You can call him at 855-225-9478. Did I get that right, David?
You did. Yeah, thank you. And of course, visit webrageous.com. Oh, and on webrageous.com/Smith, all the way at the bottom, there's 2 bonuses for business owners. One is a stay interview to make sure you're keeping your employees happy, which is so important. And also there's a sample subcontractor agreement. I think I got a pretty good one that might help people and they can adapt that for employees. So.
Nice. That's great. Especially important for businesses that have a lot of confidential information and need to make sure that they are owners of the work that the contractor does. Speaking of ownership of things, to bring that conversation back around. So thank you all for joining us. David, thank you so much for diving deep with us and just digging right in. This was really eye-opening, and I hope everyone enjoyed the session as much as I did.
Awesome. Thank you, Maddy.
Thanks. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.